So let's dive right into the traditional production process of foie gras. Foie gras, which means fatty liver in French, is a delicacy made from the enlarged livers of ducks and geese. The process of creating foie gras involves a controversial practice called gavage, or force feeding. This is done to significantly increase the size of the bird's livers, making them richer and more flavorful. During the force feeding process, a tube is inserted into the bird's throat, and a large amount of grain is forced down into their stomachs. This is done several times a day for a period of about 2 to 4 weeks. As a result, the livers of these birds become up to 10 times their normal size. Now, as you might imagine, this process raises several animal welfare concerns. Critics argue that force feeding is cruel and inhumane, as it can cause injuries to the birds' throats and esophagus, as well as lead to other health problems, such as liver failure and respiratory issues. Additionally, the living conditions of the ducks and geese on foie gras farms are often cramped and unsanitary, which only adds to the overall welfare concerns surrounding this delicacy. On the other end of the spectrum, proponents of foie gras argue that the process of force feeding is not as harmful as it's made out to be. They claim that ducks and geese have a natural ability to store food in their esophagus without discomfort, and that the process of gavage simply takes advantage of this natural behavior. Regardless of where you stand on this issue, it's important to be aware of the ethical concerns surrounding the traditional production process of foie gras. This understanding will help inform the rest of our discussion as we delve further into the cultural, legal, and ethical aspects of this divisive delicacy. Moving on to the cultural significance of foie gras in French cuisine and society. Foie gras has a long and storied history in France, dating back to ancient Roman times. Over the centuries, it has become an integral part of French culinary tradition and is often associated with luxury, indulgence, and celebration. In France, foie gras is typically served as a starter, either as a pâté, mousse, or terrine, and is often accompanied by a sweet wine or champagne. It is particularly popular during festive occasions, such as Christmas and New Year's Eve. This deep-rooted cultural significance has contributed to the continued popularity of foie gras in France, despite the ethical concerns surrounding its production. However, it's important to note that the demand for foie gras is not limited to France. The delicacy has found its way into the menus of many high-end restaurants around the world, further contributing to its global appeal. The strong cultural ties and the luxurious status of foie gras in French cuisine have made it difficult for many people to fully embrace the ethical concerns related to its production. Some view the criticism of foie gras as an attack on French culinary heritage, while others may not be fully aware of the welfare issues involved in its production. As we continue our discussion, we'll explore the various bans and restrictions on foie gras production and sales worldwide, and how these measures have been influenced by the ethical concerns surrounding this controversial delicacy. Now, let's examine the various bans and restrictions on foie gras production and sales in countries such as the United States, Israel, and India. These bans and restrictions are primarily driven by the ethical concerns related to animal welfare, which we discussed earlier in the traditional production process of foie gras. In the United States, the situation is a bit complex. While there is no federal ban on foie gras production or sales, some states and cities have implemented their own restrictions. For instance, California enacted a ban on the sale and production of foie gras in 2004, which was later upheld by the Supreme Court in 2019. New York City also passed a ban on foie gras sales in 2019, which was set to take effect in 2022. Moving on to Israel, the country was once a significant producer of foie gras. However, in 2003, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that force feeding violated the country's animal cruelty laws, effectively banning the production of foie gras in the country. This decision was driven by growing concerns over animal welfare and the ethical implications of force feeding. In India, the situation is a bit different. While there isn't a specific ban on foie gras, the country does prohibit the import of animal products that are deemed to involve cruelty in their production. In 2014, India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry banned the import of foie gras based on these grounds, making it the first and only country to enforce such a ban. These bans and restrictions showcase the growing global awareness of animal welfare issues and the ethical concerns surrounding the production of foie gras. As we move forward in our discussion, we'll investigate alternative methods of producing foie gras that do not involve force feeding and their potential to address these concerns. Let's now investigate alternative methods of producing foie gras that do not involve force feeding, such as the ethical foie gras movement and their potential to address animal welfare concerns. The ethical foie gras movement is built around the idea of producing foie gras without the controversial practice of force feeding. One of the pioneers in this movement is Spanish farmer Eduardo Salsa. He has developed a method of producing foie gras by allowing his geese to roam free on his farm and feed on natural resources like acorns, olives, and figs. This natural diet, combined with the migratory instincts of the birds, leads to a natural enlargement of their livers during certain times of the year. Souza's method of producing foie gras has gained international attention and accolades, including winning a prestigious culinary award in 2006. His approach has inspired other farmers and producers to explore similar methods, leading to the development of more humane alternatives to traditional foie gras production. Another approach involves using scientific advancements to create foie gras without the need for force feeding or even raising animals at all. One example is lab-grown foie gras, which is produced by culturing liver cells in a laboratory setting. This method completely eliminates the need for force feeding and has the potential to significantly reduce the ethical concerns associated with foie gras production. While these alternative methods are promising, they still face challenges when it comes to widespread acceptance and adoption. Some critics argue that the taste and texture of ethical foie gras may not be on par with traditionally produced foie gras. Additionally, the cost of production for these alternatives is often higher, which may limit their accessibility to consumers. However, as awareness about animal welfare issues continues to grow, these alternative methods of producing foie gras could play a crucial role in addressing the ethical concerns surrounding this controversial delicacy. Finally, let's analyze the ongoing debates between proponents of foie gras as a culinary delicacy and animal rights activists, and the potential for finding a middle ground in this controversial issue. On one side of the debate, you have the proponents of foie gras, who argue that it is a time-honored culinary tradition, deeply rooted in French culture and gastronomy. They maintain that the force-feeding process is not as cruel as it's portrayed, and that the taste and texture of foie gras are unmatched by any alternative. Some producers also claim that they are making efforts to improve the living conditions of the birds and minimize the stress associated with force feeding. On the other side, animal rights activists argue that the production of foie gras is inherently cruel and inhumane, regardless of any improvements in living conditions or force feeding techniques. They believe that the welfare of the animals should take precedence over the preservation of a culinary tradition. Finding a middle ground in this debate is challenging, as both sides hold strong convictions about their respective positions. However, the emergence of alternative methods of producing foie gras, such as the ethical foie gras movement and lab-grown foie gras, may offer a potential path towards compromise. These alternatives could provide a way for foie gras to remain a part of the culinary landscape, while addressing some of the ethical concerns associated with its production. By supporting and promoting these alternative methods, both sides of the debate may be able to find common ground and work towards a more humane future for the production of this controversial delicacy. In conclusion, the debate surrounding foie gras is complex and multifaceted, encompassing cultural, ethical, and legal aspects. As our understanding of animal welfare continues to evolve, and as new alternatives to traditional foie gras production emerge, it is essential for both sides of the debate to engage in constructive dialogue.